I now call upon Mr. Harsh V. Chopra. Mr. Chopra is founding partner at Partners4Growth. He has conducted knowledge sessions for more than 1,000 CEOs in partnership with leading companies across 10 cities in India and the US. Mr. Chopra was MD of the Indian subsidiary of several multinational companies during the last 12 years, Bausch Lomb, Luxottica, Ray-Ban, and Intertek. He also founded the Indian subsidiary of Adizes Institute, which consults family-managed companies across 50 countries. Prior to that, he has worked in senior management roles in Hindustan Unilever for 15 years. Mr. Chopra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Is the mic on? It's a pleasure to be here this evening. How many promoters in this room are first-generation entrepreneurs? How many of you? Just raise your hands, please. First generation who started the business did not inherit it from his father. Thank you. How many are third generation or more? Just two. You see, that brings an interesting point. Would you like to take a guess as to how many generations a family business survives? Take a guess. Two. One makes it, the other destroys it. You have the old saying, industrialist, playboy, beggar. And I'm not just talking about Malia. Even political dynasties. I'm not naming. So the percentage of family businesses which survive more than 3 generations is very small. It's less than 10% worldwide. Let me toss another question at you. How many Fortune 500 companies have survived? Fortune 500 means large companies operating in 100 countries. They're not small. They've taken a while to get there. How many Fortune 500 companies who started in about 1955 and they did a survey in 2011, how many survived over that period of 58, 60 years? Take a guess. Out of 500, how many survived? Sorry? 80% survived or died? Survived. Okay, sure. Any other guess? 50. 10%? Who said that? Thank you, sir. You're absolutely right. Only 10% survived. So again, the question to you is, do you think a family business will outlast a Fortune 500 company? Yes or no? Obviously not. You're absolutely right, sir. So there's something you have to do if you want to ensure longevity. And I'm going to tell you what. So listen carefully. I worked, for 3 years with a Jewish gentleman, Dr. Adizes, who consults to family-managed businesses across 50 countries. Can you hear me there at the back? And he's been around. He's written 14 books, translated in 24 languages, and he has 8 or 10 PhDs to his name. And I learned a lot of little things from him, having worked with him and started his Indian subsidiary. And one of the things that I learned from him was, and this question directly addresses all of you sitting in this room, because you're all established, most of you are first-generation entrepreneurs. The leadership style that brought you here is not going to work in the next phase of your journey. And I'll tell you why. I don't know how many of you have attended my talk earlier on the life cycle of the organization. Anybody here? So I'll take 2 minutes just to quickly run you through it. You see, courtship is the first stage. That's the time somebody has an idea. Let me start a business. Let me start a company. That's the stage when he's very passionate. He's bouncing the idea of his wife, his lawyer, his friend, his uncle, anybody who's willing to listen. ये चलेगी कि नहीं चलेगी? When is a company born? A company is born the day risk is taken, the day he resigns his job. The first stage is the infancy stage. Infancy is a stage of crisis. This is the time when a promoter works a 14-hour day. He's the chief hiring manager, financer, planner, strategic, everything, all rolled into one. This is a stage of crisis, and many people do not cross the stage. The few who cross the stage, primarily people like you in this room, reach the go-go stage. That's the success stage. अच्छे दिन आ गए. Cash flow is positive, customers are placing repeat orders, you have confidence in the future, the employees are confident. And suddenly it strikes the promoter, अरे ये तो चल गई मेरी company. In North India, this is the stage, vaddi gaddi vadda plot. You know, you want to establish yourself in the social scene. You want to, make a point to your family. And the old uncle of yours said, मुझे पता था एक दिन ये बड़ा आदमी बनेगा. मुझे पता था, मुझे पहले ही पता था. So the go-go stage is a stage of success. The entrepreneur tastes success. His wife starts having Versace purses for the kitty party. He swaps his fake Ray-Ban sunglass of 500 rupees with the original Ray-Ban of 5,000 rupees. He has arrived. Vaddi gaddi vadda plot. That's the success stage. Then the big problem comes. Adolescence is the stage when the company has grown beyond a size that the promoter can personally manage it. And let me come back to the first chart I showed you. The style that worked in the go-go stage, and what's that? That's a top-down stage. Ye karo, wo karo, ye karo, wo karo. It's a top-down hierarchical style which works, which is good for that stage. But that doesn't work when the company grows to the adolescent stage. If you cross a certain point, you are multi-locational, you got 5 branches, you don't know everybody personally. You can't manage your teenage daughter the way you managed her when she was 2 years old. This is the time when the promoter has to change his own leadership style. If he doesn't, he's stuck. If you want to be a Narayan Murthy, if you want to be a Wipro, you have to be able to professionalize your company. You have to grow beyond that stage. You have to hire and retain professionals. I was giving a talk in Ludhiana, and one very successful Sardarji businessman, a very successful guy, he told me that, I don't like professionals. They charge too much money, they are not loyal, you really can't trust them, they know too much, they know more than me. Now the point is, you have to learn to handle professionals who know more than you in the domain area in which you've hired them. You might need a CFO because Munimji will not work. You might need a chief marketing officer, somebody who understands branding and marketing better than you. So for the first time, you have to manage people who know more than you. Because in the go-go stage, you are God. People say, "Wah bhai, wah sir." To your own employees, you are God. सर कमाल कर दिया आपने सर. सर वो जो हिमालयन स्ट्रैटेजी आपने बनाई थी मैम के बर्थडे पे, मैम बीइंग हिज वाइफ, वो सर उसी ने सर हमारी कंपनी को चढ़ा दिया है. यू विल से नहीं, दैट इज़ योर हार्ड वर्क. सर हार्ड वर्क तो सब करते हैं सर, पर आपकी जो स्ट्रैटेजी थी ना सर, वही है जिसने हमको इस मचान तक पहुंचा दिया. एंड promoters feel very happy, and why not? He's slogged, he's worked very hard. It works. It actually works. Also at this stage, what happens is the fight starts between the old guard, the loyalists who've been with you since beginning, and the new people you have to bring in now because you need domain knowledge experts, you need professionals. And the old guard says, ये तो सर presentation वाले हैं, बड़े-बड़े MBA. ये market में पैसा नहीं निकाल सकते आपका. ये strategy कर लेते हैं, but they are not implementation people, sir. ये चलेगा नहीं सर, they are not like you, they are not like us. और ये कहाँ थे जब हम लोग धक्के खा रहे थे? Ab wo aa gaye, and then suddenly the promoter realizes that the salary structure of these professionals is different. And a fight breaks out between the old guard and the professionals. And by and large, do you know who wins the fight? This fight happens in every company once they cross a certain cycle, a certain size. Guess who wins the fight? Sorry? Invariably the old guard. Usne to holi kheli aapke saath 10 saal ke liye, Diwali kheli hai. He has very strong emotional bonds with the promoter. When the promoter was having his first baby in the hospital, he said, "Sir, hum bhabhi ji ko kuch nahi hone denge." He was there, you know, Raktdan, right there at the hospital. What did the professional do? He sent an SMS. "Congratulations, sir." Now, let me come to the top stage, the desirable stage, prime. A company in prime is a company which is like a well-oiled machine. All the managers know their 1-year plan, they know their 5-year plan. You have a succession plan for all important positions. The organization runs with predictable excellence. You can predict next year I'll grow by 32%, and you actually grow by 32%. So the organization is in a state of control. It is being run by systems and processes. When you are in go-go, you don't know whether next year you will be double or half, because you are running by the seat of your pants. Yeah? So prime is the stage to be. If you want to be a Wipro, Narayan Murthy, Tata, Godrej, Marico, one of these, Dabur, one of these successful business families who've made it, that's the stage you want to be in. You go on an Alaskan cruise, because you can afford it by now, and the company will run for 1 month, click-clock, without a problem. I will quickly share some leadership lessons with this man, because I worked for him for a while. When he's an Italian, his name is Leonardo Del Vecchio, and I learned a few lessons which I'd like to just share with you. He's a school dropout. He was raised in an orphanage. His father died before he was born. This year, he is 40th on the Forbes list of the world's wealthiest men. 40th. His net worth is $20 billion. He's 40th on the Forbes list of the most wealthy men. Guess who's 39th this year? Take a guess. Sorry? Who's 39th on the list, of Forbes list of the world's wealthiest men? Sorry? Yes, Mukesh Ambani, absolutely right. So his net worth is the same as Mukesh Ambani. If you round it off to $1 billion, moti baat, they are the same. He's the second wealthiest in Italy this year. He's 80 years old now. When I met him, that was more than 10 years back. Sorry about that. The sound is on. Okay. Can I continue? Yeah. And he's a school dropout, like many successful people. He doesn't have PhDs and Harvard MBAs. He employs many Harvard MBAs, but he's a school dropout himself. His name is Leonardo Del Vecchio. He's the founder of the world's biggest eyewear company, which last year had a turnover of 7.6 billion euro with 77,000 employees across 100 countries, more than 100 countries. He's the owner of brands like Ray-Ban and Oakley. You've heard of Ray-Ban and Oakley? He also makes and distributes all the luxury brands that you can think of. All the brands listed there, Bulgari, Prada, you name it, Giorgio Armani. All the European luxury heritage brands are made by Luxottica. He owns 2 optical chains, LensCrafters and Sunglass Hut. They're the biggest optical chains in the world. Now the lessons I'd like to share with you. When I went to Milan first, and I was introduced to him, and he's a big guy there. The HR manager, Renzo Damin, said, He took me aside and he said, look, our organization structure is very simple. You have God, Bhagwanji, right on top. Very close to God is Leonardo del Vecchio. And everybody reports straight to Leonardo del Vecchio. He loved his company so much that he was a total workaholic to the neglect of everything else. He loved his company with passion so much that he didn't have a second level of leadership, vice presidents. Everybody was an operational person. Between his 3 wives, his 6 children, and his company, who do you think he loved the most? The company. He spent more time with the company than with his family. His children were brought up by his wife. He hardly saw them. He loved his company with passion. So much so that it grew, it was very successful, but he wouldn't let go. There was a lot of frustration at the senior management level. Why does he have to take every single decision himself? A lot of decisions are getting delayed, but he loved his company with so much passion that he just wouldn't like to give the company up to somebody else to run. That's true of many entrepreneurs. So the first time he decided to go for a professional CEO was at the age of 70. And that was a gentleman called Dave Brown, who used to run the chain LensCrafters in the US. And that lasted very short because he just couldn't hand over the baby to somebody else to run, and then he asked him to leave. Although Dave Brown is a very respected professional in the US. The second attempt was more successful. He hired Andrea Guerra, and he ran the company for 7-8 years, almost 10 years actually. But at the age of 80, he sacked him and said, I'm going to run it again as my company. He just couldn't let go. So he had a CFO, Enrico Cavatorta, he fired him. He said, I'm going to run the company. Right now, there are 3 people reporting into him, and he basically wants to run it hands-on at the age of 80. So the message is, many successful entrepreneurs love their company so much that they can't let go. That's true for large, successful organizations. That's true for small organizations like yours. So as the organizations grow, you have to keep a distance between yourself and the organization. The organization takes a life of its own. These are the 4 big leadership potholes that I have seen in my work. I've met professionals across dozens of cities, and I'm just sharing them with you. The first is they micromanage too much. They don't let go. And they stifle and they strangle the organization. I met a promoter in Bombay. He's running the biggest spice export company of India. And he said, मैं तो सारे चेक खुद ही साइन करता हूँ. 100 हो, 150 हो. मैंने कहा फिर आप और क्या करते हैं? कहता बस मैं चेक ही साइन करता हूँ. He just won't let go. So I asked him, will you be able to have better management control if you sign just 4 important checks, if you sign all the 100 checks? So that made him think a little. He said, हाँ, ठीक है, कुछ point है उसमें. But he hasn't let go till now. He's exhausted by the end of the day. But he won't let go. He's not able to delegate effectively without losing control. Second is, promoters are very often not able to put systems and processes in place. They like to take personalized decisions. If they have an administration manual, they are the first ones to break the rules. अरे मेरी कंपनी है भाई, मैं क्यों एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन मैनुअल की बात सुनूं? मैनुअल बड़ा है, मैं बड़ा हूं. So an outsider who walks into the company at this stage, he says, hey, there's no law and order here. Everybody's running around in circles and everybody reports to one guy. How can you run a large organization like that? It's okay up to the go-go stage, then it's fine. But if you want to grow, you have to put systems and processes in place. The third we've discussed. The fourth is very important. Once the patriarch is gone, whether you're the neighborhood chemist or you're the Ambani family, it's going to split. Unless you have a family charter, you have common values, and you have really worked hard on it. There was a study done by Harvard on Indian business families, and the patriarch, the founder, 50% of his time had to be spent in managing internal family politics, not the business. Because all the, how to balance the family and the business becomes a big, big challenge. There's sibling rivalry. There is father-son rivalry. Like take the example of Leonardo Del Vecchio. His eldest son, Claudio, said, "Dad, I can't work with you." Because many successful people, they are so strong, opinionated. That's why they became successful. They want things done exactly in one particular way. And their children can't tolerate that. So, sorry, Dad, I can't work with you. So he's now running a chain in the United States called Brooks Brothers. He owns and operates the chain. He's lived very far from his father, a different continent. He's successful in his own right. Many siblings cannot work together. So this is something that, unless it is properly thought through, most entrepreneurs will fail. I run a workshop, the next one is an ATOG, I run it twice a year, a 100-day plan to professionalize your business. From promoters all across different cities. It's a one-day workshop. Basically drilling in the same leadership lessons which I'm sharing with you, which I'll quickly run through. You start with the diagnosis. What's holding you back? The second question is, where do you want to go? I met a Gujarati entrepreneur in Ahmedabad. He said, मुझे तो 1000 करोड़ की कंपनी करनी है, बस जो भी हो जाए. मुझे 1000 करोड़ की कंपनी बनानी है. And I was generally chatting with him, अभी कितना हो, अभी तो मैं 250 करोड़ हूँ. Entrepreneurs tend to neglect their families in the first phase of their life cycle. His mind is working on, मैं salary कैसे दूंगा 2 तारीख को. His wife is saying कि यार सलमान खान की नई पिक्चर चले, कब पिक्चर हम लोग ने एक साथ. You know, the wife feels really neglected, the spouse. This bears out, there's a book on how to manage a marriage with an entrepreneur. The wife of Mexico's biggest private bank, she made a very interesting comment once. She said, "This company took my husband from me when he had black hair and gave him back to me when he had white hair." So there's a price to be paid if you want to be a successful entrepreneur of that size. So it's okay. Somebody may be very satisfied with 3 petrol pumps that he's inherited. He says, "Sab theek chal raha hai, meri roti chal rahi hai, 3 gaadiyan hain, sab kuch hai. Why should I kill myself?" He's right. So it is your personal call where you want to go. It's your DNA, but you must understand where you want to go. The next question I ask and I work with promoters is, do you have the people and structure? Like I was talking to that Gujarati entrepreneur who said, "मुझे 1000 करोड़ की कंपनी." मैंने कहा, "आपके पास आदमी कितने हैं? जरा organization structure दिखाओ." He had very low level, very low paid people. I said, इस टीम के साथ आप 1000 करोड़ का बिजनेस बनाओगे? उससे 200 करोड़ का बिजनेस नहीं चल रहा है. He said, "नहीं, प्लांट फैक्ट्री मैनेजर को तो मैं 50,000 से ज़्यादा नहीं दे सकता." So you got to have the right people and the right organization structure. Otherwise, you will not go where you want to go. This is very important. Do you have best-in-class processes? Most promoters do not. And in my last workshop, I was, having a very interesting discussion with one of them, who said, "Financial authority limit क्या होती है भाई? मैं ही तो सब sign करता हूँ check." But you can't run an organization beyond a certain size when you sign all checks. It won't work. Not just an organization of Leonardo Del Vecchio's size, but even a 100 crore company. When I joined Hindustan Unilever as a trainee 30 years back, my first project was how to improve the technical efficiency, which is between oil and soap, from 98% to 98.5%. Now that would save Hindustan Unilever thousands of tons of oil across a year. But a small promoter doesn't look at technical efficiencies. He looks at the moti baat. But as you grow, you have to be able to measure, record, and control your processes. That's the message I'd like to give you. Lastly, you must have a strategic plan. आप लंबा strategic plan छोड़ो, 3 साल का बनाओ. Most promoters are busy firefighting. So the question is, does any of you have a 3-year strategic plan? Any of you in this room? Please raise your hand. Yes. Thank you, sir. You're in the minority here, but you're doing a great job. Most people are so busy firefighting, he's saying, abhi payment to nikal raha hu yaar. 3 साल का plan बाद में बनाएंगे. पहले आग तो बुझा दूं. And he's right. He's right. So just like, when you handle your children, you have to change your own style. You can't handle your teenage daughter or your adolescent son the way you handle them. Similarly, you have to handle your employees differently as the organization grows. And unless you're able to change your own style, you will become the biggest roadblock to growth. And I've seen it a lot of times. Employees are hesitant to tell the promoter because unke liye to promoter bhagwan hai. Ki sir, problem to aap mein hai. How does he tell? Who's going to tell him? So this is something you got to think. This is something you got to think. My presentation today evening has 2 parts. I've just finished the first one. I'll take 2-3 questions and then move to the second one, which is an announcement which ICICI Bank and my company are going to do together. So we move to Q. I'll just take 2 or 3 questions. Shoot, if you'd like to ask anything. Somebody has the mics here, right? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chopra, you
Yes, sir.
really raised a very good subject that when you have to grow, you have to really hire professionals. But there is always a conflict between old guard and the new people. And really a promoter, and you said that when you reach that stage, one has to take a decision. But that decision is so difficult to take. And which way to go? You side by the old guard or side by the new professional, and there's a conflict, and then end of the day, you said rightly, the old guard wins and the new generation either leaves or they also follow the same track. But end of the day, the organization starts suffering. So how do you proceed? How one fights this situation? Or what are the remedies for this?
Okay, everybody's heard his question. How do you resolve the conflict between the old guard who worked with you for the first formative years of your organization, who are loyal to you, who have brought you where you are today, and the new professionals with their new ideas who are coming in, these laptop-wielding MBA types and these marketing professionals? So how do you resolve this? That's a very interesting question, and there's no straight answer, but I'll try to give you a 1-minute response to the best of my knowledge. See, you've got to assess the potential of every employee. So in your old guard team, some will have the potential on training to rise, some will not have the potential to rise. Those who do not have the potential will become frustrated and will stop you in your journey. You have to be generous with them and pay them off. Give them a generous settlement and let them go. There are others who can be trained and who will upgrade their skills as the organization grows. Keep them. They are very loyal. They've been with you through your tough period. Keep them. So you have to take this call person by person. You can't, there's no generic answer for it. Right. Any other questions?
I have a question here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this side.
Sorry, sir.
That you're saying that that Luxottica group query.
Yes, sir.
That is happening almost on a worldwide basis, including India. What you saw in Infosys and what has just happened in Dell, what has happened in Kohler, the family has come back to the fold. What exactly is the problem there? That why is it that all these old businesses of the erstwhile era have to come back?
Yeah.
There must be some issues with leadership, or maybe the people who are being groomed are not coming up to that level or don't want to come to that level.
That's a good question. That's a good question, sir. I'll tell you what my take is. You see, to respond to you, sometimes the professional team is not able to fill in the shoes of the promoter. That generally happens in the first attempt, not after 10 years, like Luxottica's case. He'll clearly see कि ये नहीं चलेगा. He has to be replaced, owner has to come back. because it's very difficult to fill a promoter's shoes, and there's a way to do it. You have to first, there's a way to do it. You cannot, nobody can fill the shoes of a promoter. But in the case of Leonardo Del Vecchio, it was different. You see, at some stage, you have to realize, every promoter has to realize that me and my company is not the same thing. The company has outgrown you. Then hundreds and thousands of lives are at stake. There are many stakeholders, employees, shareholders, if it's a listed company, if it's a global company, you know, the dealers, stockists. Lakhs of people have very strong stakes. So it's not just my company. But in this case, he owns some 76%, a very strong controlling stake. He said, "Meri company hai, main jo chahun karu." I feel like this thing. So even if it's to the detriment of the company, he comes back, although it was being run very well by Andrew Guerra, who I think did a superb job. And the stock, when he came back, the stock dropped 3% in one day. It's listed on the Milan and the New York Stock Exchange. In one day it locked, and a lot of his board members told him, "Boss, what are you doing?" But he said, you know, he loves the company so much and he had absolute control. So I don't think it was the right decision, but he did it. In some cases, it is the right decision in the beginning. If you've just brought in a professional and he's not able to manage, sure, you have to step in and change it.
Dell is a very old company. Same goes for Kohler, same goes for Infosys, right? And many other companies like Walmart too. What is it that the promoters are wanting to come back and the CEOs or the COOs or the CMOs are not able to perform?
Mostly, there's no such thing. Professionals are very smart, and once they've handed over charge, they should not really come back. They should choose the person with a lot of care, because anybody who replaces the promoter at a large size or billion-dollar company has been tested by, independently vetted by a panel of professionals, etc., etc. So generally, it should not happen. Any other questions?
Can I come?
Yeah. Okay. We'll take the last question, and then I want to move on to the second part, which is a very interesting announcement I have to make. Yes, sir.
So you cited a very good example of the promoters of Ray-Ban and Oakley.
Yeah.
But this is largely a collection of small entrepreneurs here.
Right, right.
So how do we as MSMEs identify as to what stage we are in? Whether we are in the go-go stage, adolescence, or in the prime already. It's really difficult. We don't have any such indicators. And I'm not even an 80-year-old. So what do I do?
My guess is most of you here would be in go-go. Cash flow is positive. Customers are, it's a successful business. Customers are placing repeat. It's an established running business. Adolescence is when it grows to multiple stages and you have to professionalize and you can't run it anymore. So you yourself have to decide, you know, I can take you through a little more detail on the different stages, and you yourself have to decide where you are. Sure. But by and large, prime would be an Infosys, where Narayan Murthy is in the US, or he's an independent director on the boards of 20 companies and he's not even involved in day-to-day operation and still runs beautifully. That's prime. So clearly nobody here is in prime. So I'll now, if with your permission, move on to the second part, and then we'll have some Q&As at the end of that. Yeah? I'm pleased to announce that ICICI Bank and Partners4Growth have collaborated to launch Promoters Club. Starting with Delhi, it will be rolled out across different cities. Now you might ask, another club, CII, FICCI, you know, you are 100, what's the big deal? Why do you want to, I mean, what's the objective? And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. So just hold your breath. See, this is going to be a club exclusively for promoters, CEOs, and MDs, heads of organizations, founders, first generation, second generation, people who are actually running their enterprise. It's not a club for support functions, legal, finance, all that. It's basically anybody across any function who's actually owning and running the business above a turnover of 25 crores. Now, there may be different clubs for lower turnovers, fine, but this particular one is what the SME segment, what we call the SME segment, and what the bank calls the SME segment. So that's 25 to 500 crores. So if you are a owner or promoter or founder of a company in a turnover of 25 to 500 crores, you qualify. If not, you don't. Membership is by invitation. Anybody who thinks he fits the bill, please apply. We'll just tell you straight away how it's done. And just after basic check, if you qualify the basic parameters, we'd be happy to accept you. The reason for keeping it with certain safeguards is you don't want, if you really want to help SME promoters, you have to stick to the guidelines of promoters. You can't bring a lawyer in or an accountant in or a IT specialist in or an HR consultant in, because they have their own forums, but not for this forum. This is the objective of the club, to help promoters and entrepreneurs and CEOs scale up by avoiding the pitfalls which trip up most of them in their journey. I've listed 4 of them, we have 10 of them. Now, how will we do that? In 2 ways. The first is a platform for peer learning. By peer learning, I mean there's a lot of learning within the group. You may be from a chemical industry, somebody else may be from a pharmaceutical industry. There are a lot of successes and failures all of you in this room have experienced. There's a lot to learn from each other. Maybe the problem you're trying to solve has already been solved by somebody else. And he will tell you in his own words, हाँ भाई मैंने तो ऐसे इसको किया, मैंने CFO को ऐसे हायर किया इस प्राइस रेंज में, आपकी कंपनी क्या 150 करोड़ की टर्नओवर है, ठीक है मैंने ऐसे रिक्रूट किया, आई एम वेरी हैप्पी. So there's a lot of peer learning which is possible. Very often relationships formed in these peer groups, they last a lifetime, because they're all like-minded people across different industries. There's a lot to learn from each other. And it's a sharing of successes and failures. Today I was meeting a promoter for the CNBC award along with Arup of ICICI Bank. He is the chairman of that panel. He's the head of North of ICICI Bank. And we met a promoter who was, sharing his failures. He said, look, I am doubling my business every year. I'm 150 crores now. But I failed in my last venture. We asked him, do you have any failures? He said, yes, I do. I launched a brand, it didn't work. I learned my lessons. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from failures. Probably more than the lessons to be learned from successes. That's been my experience. I met more than 1,000 entrepreneurs across different cities. So we are going to create a peer learning platform in small groups, not a group of this size. So there are 2 parts to this promoters club. The first part is a knowledge session like this. We'll call in the second part, platform for knowledge sessions. We'll call in a guru, a marketing guru, somebody on supply chain, somebody who's an expert in manufacturing efficiencies. He only knows that subject, but he knows it very well. So that's a common knowledge session like this, 60, 70 people, whatever. Then there's a small peer learning group of 8 people or 9 people. They spend an hour or 2 talking to each other, understanding each other's industry for an hour and a half, once in 2 months, and they learn from each other. In Bombay, you heard of Harish Mariwala, the founder of Marico. He's formed a group like that in Bombay, which is having a very strong peer learning group. And in one of his talks, and also the talks of, I remember, of Anand Mahindra, of the famous company, Mahindra & Mahindra, you see, they have their own club, people above 10,000 crores. And there's a lot of cross-learning possible. Because being the owner or promoter can be a very lonely experience. Who do you ask? You can't ask the guys below, and you don't want to go to competition, so who do you talk to? So this gives you a platform to talk. So these are the 2 functions of the Promoters Club. The knowledge session and the peer learning session in small groups, and experience sharing across industry verticals. These are typical topics of the knowledge session. You can have a look. The first is a workshop I run separately, but this is going to be part of this group. How do you professionalize and scale up your business? 100-day plan. Succession planning. Next generation induction is a very tricky one. Today we were talking to some entrepreneurs, and one of them said, my children will not automatically get a position in my business. They have to earn it. They have to compete with the other professionals who apply for the job. They have to be good. They have to get outside work experience. Only then I'll take them. Just because he's my son doesn't mean he just walks in. There was a study done by Harvard some time back, and one of the mistakes large companies make is telling their children, there is always a place for you here. आप जाओ music सीखो, jazz करो, photographer करो, घूमो फिरो. Your space in the company is secure. You will make you a director whenever you want to come back. If you are in a competitive industry, that's not going to work. One of the most successful companies, in fact, coming back for a minute to Mariwala, both his children are not in the business. One of them loves something else. They have their own interests. So many promoters of large companies do not just pick up their children and induct them. Even this famous Leonardo Del Vecchio, none of his 6 children are in the business or are ever going to be a part of the business. Now, I'm not saying that's true for you. I'm talking of, just giving you an example. Once you grow to a certain size of, hopefully, 10,000 crores, people in this room, maybe you can say that. Right now, of course, your children will come into your business at this size. But that's something you've got to think about. How do you groom you straight away, आइए बेटे सिंहासन ग्रहण करिए? Is that the approach you want to take? Or I was a management trainee in Unilever when I joined after passing out chemical engineering from an IIT. Oh, 2-year training program. You have to work through fitter, operator, trainer, 2 साल ज़मीन रगड़ो, काम सीखो, उसके बाद if you pass the interview, if you're okay, we'll hire you, otherwise sorry. This is what the club is not. It's not a forum for lobbying with the government. For that you have to go to CII, FICCI and all that. We are not attempting to do that. It's not a forum for raising finance. It's not a forum for social work. I'm not saying social work is bad. Please go ahead and do it. But this club is not the forum for social work. This is what the plan is. The club will meet, promoters will meet once in 2 months. And this is a typical session. 1 hour is the knowledge session, and an hour and a half is a peer session in small groups. Once in 2 months. That's 6 meetings a year. Typically, we expect promoters to attend 5. The first session will be funded by the bank. Thank Arup for that. And then it will be self-funded with some subsidy from the bank. So it will be a sort of at-cost club. And those interested in joining can register. There's a leaflet in your bag which talks about the club and the email you have to do. So you have to just register if you are interested. And then we just screen your application. If you qualify, you are in that turnover range, you're welcome. You want to bring a colleague along, somebody in the family who's running another company in that range who you think can benefit, sure, we'd be delighted. So it's purely your call. We are just presenting if the bank's interest is to promote entrepreneurship in the country. It's like a non-profit. So, if you have any questions, and one, thank you for reminding me, Sonal. There are 2 feedback forms in your bags. We would request you just to take 1 minute each to give your feedback, both on the Promoters Club and on the session before that, so that we can action it accordingly. And I close this now, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have either on the club. Just a quick question. Any of you in this room think it's a great idea or think it's a disastrous idea? Please tell me now. Great idea, please raise your hands. Or you think, yeah, I might like to try it out. Great idea. Okay, sir. Any questions, in either the first session or the second session, please shoot. We have 5 minutes. Yes, sir. On the first session, please give him a mic.
So regarding this trade-off between firefighting and strategic planning, see, whenever you are done with dousing one fire, you realize there's a bigger fire which needs your attention. So how do you break that cycle? How do you decide that now firefighting is done, I have to move on to another level, when you know you can, when the fires would always be there?
Yeah, good question. Everybody's heard this question. You see, at a certain stage of your life cycle, you have to live with firefighting. There's no time until you stabilize your company. It's like a big ship in an ocean. It can weather many storms, but until the time you're a small boat, you'll be naturally more vulnerable. So there is no specific answer to your question. All I can say is, it's a perfect question, that up to a certain stage, it's a part of life. Every entrepreneur goes through that first stage when he lives through a crisis. Every day is a crisis. There's a fire every day. The interesting sidelight, I remember, is that the entrepreneur doesn't have much time. He works typically a 15-hour day. What happens when both spouses are entrepreneurs and both of them have to work, Very tough. Sometimes it's mathematically not possible because they're only 24 hours a day. A recent famous case was Sergey Brin, the guy who founded Google. He's also married to an entrepreneur, Ain. She's the founder of a company, 23andMe. It's a DNA testing company in the US. They take a sample of saliva from you and tell you your ancestry. It's a country of immigrants, so they'll take a sample and they'll tell you, okay, you've got Middle East blood 15%, Mexican 20%, North American and so much, South Asian 5%. So you know what your ancestry is. So they got married, and last year the marriage broke up in a very high-profile breakup. But people were not surprised. They said, look, if both of them have to work a 15-hour day, it's very tough for a marriage to survive. Sorry. Next question. Yes, sir.
If I'm in North India, if I think about family-owned business, I can think of escorts and Srirams. And thing went wrong when they were joined by all the qualified MBAs of his son. So I want to know what went wrong in escorts and Shriram.
Okay. See, life is cyclical. Organizations are cyclical. There are a lot of new age companies who are rising, and there are a lot of old companies which are Mafatlals have gone down the tube, Escorts, many others. They were great companies at one time. Sometimes it's the industry cycle. You are in the textile business and it's going through a decline cycle. Sometimes the son or the next generation may be educated, but he doesn't have the fire in his belly. So it's a complex question. Why exactly a company like, say, Escorts failed or nosedived, and there'll be so many other cases. It's probably a mix of a lot of reasons. One of his sons was my classmate, incidentally, H.P. Nanda's son, in a boarding school I was in. And, it's like a rich man's son. We would spend our monthly pocket money in a bar of chocolate, and he'd get a crate of chocolates from home and distribute it around. So there's a lot of difference between a first-generation entrepreneur who has been through a lot of hardship, and he realizes what he's been through, and a second-generation entrepreneur who, when he opens his eyes, there are 3 cars in the garage. And the third-generation entrepreneur who has lived through 2 generations of luxury. He probably will become a painter or artist or something like that. My partner in the US, Dr. Adizes, very hardworking. He was, many of his family members died in the Nazi concentration camps. 102 members actually of his family were exterminated. He worked his way up and on a ship he came to the US and it took him 20 years of very hard work. But look at the next generation. One of them is a documentary filmmaker in New York, one is a jazz musician, one is a painter. That's the next generation. That's fine. I mean, nothing wrong with that. But they don't have the kind of fire in the belly that the founder had. They have not seen that kind of hardship. Yes, sir. Okay.
I can share with you personally in the next club meeting, and I can tell you that there are good results in Shriram Group, and Shriram Group is still progressing. If you want, I can share with you personally.
So you catch him over dinner. We'll take the last one question. Yes. Okay. So he's the encyclopedia on Shriram. Not only him, anybody else wants to know anything about Shriram Group, he's the man to go to. Oh, I see. Right. Right. Any last question before we close? Yes, sir. Last question.
What is the, maybe a silly question, but what is the aim of the bank and Partners for Growth? Again, the why, Do you want to nurture the entrepreneurship in India? Do you see some real great scale-ups? So what's your main mission, if I may ask?
Yeah, excellent question. I'm happy you asked because generally there's a hidden interest. Or whenever anybody starts anything, he's either looking for a subscription or, if a pharma company sponsors a doctor's visit to the US, there is some agenda behind it. It's not out of goodness of their heart. Well, in this case, it is the SME division of the bank which is doing this to promote entrepreneurship in the country. It's not at a great cost to them because, like I said, will do the first session free of charge and they're putting it all together. After that, the promoters themselves will bear the cost of the thing and they will subsidize it in a small way. So it is designed to be running on its own. It's designed to be running on its own because within the group of entrepreneurs, we'll appoint people who are administrators and, so it will be a self-run sort of a group over a period of time. And gradually, it's like an organization, it'll start on its own. So there's no vested interest or there's no financial angle or there's no hidden angle to answer your question, but very good. I'm happy you asked that.
That leads to the second part, what I want to, just present to the forum. There's a lot of policy hindrance in India. We are still not the single window clearance people. We are still treating entrepreneurs as some kind of chores, who is taking away the taxes of the government and their CAs are planning to reduce the profit and it is all, the balance sheet managements and all that. So in this kind of a scenario, we are not in a utopian or idealistic environment. Even China, I see that within 24 hours you can form a company and start doing business. They have come off age now. So in India, we still lack that, with all the glitzy talk of this current government also. So in this scenario, because this kind of attempt has been done by Trade India, by young entrepreneurs, Indus League and so many. So it's not the first time that it is happening, other than the higher echelon which is happening with Mr. Anand Mahindra and Mr. Mariwala, which is also well known. So the other efforts have also been made on this thing. And it is a mixed reaction. I cannot say the Indus League and the others are pure successes. So with the lot of policy interference, and you still have to grease lots of palms in the government to get your clearances and try to run your business on day-to-day basis. Again, somebody, my friend said, firefighting one to the other. So in that, how do you think that Success Sutra is really going to benefit the entrepreneurs, let's say if they enroll?
Okay. See, that's a question that you've asked. It's a question after my own heart. I think it is the entrepreneur who works a 15-hour day, who puts his money and his time on the line. He's the one who generates goods, services, and jobs. He should be put on a pedestal. India needs more creative, innovative entrepreneurs. It doesn't need more bureaucrats. You need more factories. You don't need more factory inspectors. So I personally believe, and I've written a blog on this, that entrepreneurs are underappreciated in India. And the national mindset has to change. They are the people who are going to deliver the goods. People like you in this room, not the bureaucrats. They are big obstacles. All they want is a happy Diwali. So at least the current Prime Minister has publicly declared his intention to bring down the ease of doing business index in India. At least he's declared his intention. Now whether the babus in the middle will allow him or not is a separate question. And they are very obstructionist. They have grown up. You see, a 0.01% of India is holding the rest of the country back, I think. I have worked in factories in 4 states. And I don't understand why you should have a Factories Act which weighs 1 kilo, and a Payment of Wages Act, and a Payment of Bonus Act. Oh my God, are you going to run your business or are you going to comply with all that? And SMEs, my experience has been, these big complicated legislation, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the government. It doesn't even help the worker, because what the promoter does is he settles with the factory inspector at the gate. He says, "Bhai, andar hi mat aao yaar. I can't comply. Maine to pehle hi haath khada kar diya. I can't comply. Sorry. I have got to run my business, or I'm going to comply with all this nonsense." It doesn't help the promoter, the consumer. It raises costs for everybody. That is India's biggest problem. Why do you think the best brains go to Dubai and Singapore? Because the environment is good. It takes 1 month to register a private limited company in India. In Singapore, it takes 4 hours. It's unpardonable. So I couldn't agree more with you. All I'm saying is, despite those existing hurdles, this attempt is to promote entrepreneurship in the country. But I completely empathize with what you're saying. My heart goes out to entrepreneurs. I deal with them all the time. And I think they are not recognized enough, and they deserve to be recognized much, much more, because they are the ones who will provide jobs to the lakhs of fresh people joining the job market every year. It's not the bureaucrats who are going to provide jobs. They are parasites. Sorry if I'm being too blunt. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you. Yes, sir. Last question.
The conclusion of this discussion and this question of my friend here is, it is our country. It is our country. We have to find solutions here, not go to Singapore or Dubai. Sir, we have to fight the system, not escape, and adapt ourselves and fight the system collectively. So this is my conclusion on this.
Let's clap to that. Thank you very much.